Hey everybody, let's talk about protagonist design in video games. This is something that gets a lot of talk, but I don't want to talk about the simple stuff. I don't want to talk about personality or visuals or powers. I want to talk about whether your protagonist interacts with the characters in your game world correctly. The protagonist is something that the player uses as a lens. Everything that the player ever sees in your video game, they see through the eyes of the protagonist. Even if there's a cutscene that doesn't involve the player character, they pay attention because they know that it will affect the player character eventually. So if your protagonist isn't moving the story correctly, you're going to have a really hard time. There's going to be a disconnect between what the player sees and what you want the player to see. And one easy way to try and get things on the right track is to make sure that the protagonist is interacting with characters in a way that helps you build the story you want to build. Give you an example or 8 here. Let's talk about Nier Automata. In Nier Automata, you play a robot called 2B. She has a blindfold and high heels, and for reasons unknown to us, swords follow her around. Now, 2B is a very reserved person. She doesn't open up to people. That doesn't mean that she's cold. It means that she just refuses to connect. Over the course of the game, she learns to accept her emotions, but even at the end of the game, she never really connects to anybody. She never really says, "I love you." She never opens up. The game is full of NPCs that like you and want to hang around with you and want you to do cool things with them and just be buddies and all that jazz, like 9S and Operator 60 and Pascal and virtually every NPC you meet, even things like the weird robot monk that wants to beat you up. He wants to beat you up because he's your buddy. All of these characters like you and they want you to appreciate them and they appreciate you, but 2B never opens up to them and never connects to them. As much as she might like them or respect them or worry about them or love them, she never lets them come close because her character is not that sort of person. Her interaction is always to brush them off. She might do what they say, but she does it in a very dismissive way. This is why the game has the strange, dreamlike tragedy quality that it has. The legendary quality of this game, the tone of this game, comes from 2B and her refusal to open up. The entire universe can be strange and unfriendly and friendly at the same time because anything that comes at you won't stay. It'll bounce off. It'll hurt. You'll connect with it at an emotion level, but 2B will not let it stay. So that's why the story can unfold in this dreamlike fashion where things come and things go and things appear and things disappear. It's because she doesn't connect. She doesn't keep anybody around. They've structured the main character of Nier Automata to help tell the story they want to tell. Let's give you a counterexample. Saints Row 3. You play whoever you would like. We'll play someone with an eye patch. You are the leader of the Saints, which is like a cartoon gang. And so you run around building your gang up. And the way this works is it's a very comedic game, but you are a very charismatic character. Here's the thing. You don't really have a set personality. There are like 6 voice packs, 7 if you count the zombie one that just goes... So you don't really have like a specific personality. You have a very general, vague, pseudo-friendly personality. But the way that you're portrayed in the game is very magnetic and very personable. This game is also full of NPCs that like and admire you. But unlike poor 2B, you connect to them immediately. And you're like, yeah, person I met 10 minutes ago, let's go beat up that random guy who's got you on the ropes or whatever. And it's not just the major NPCs. The boss connects to minor NPCs. He has literally nameless people who join him just because they like him. And I'm saying him. It's not a him. It's a they. Because you can be whoever you want to be. But the point here is that instead of telling a story about strange, dreamlike loneliness, Saints Row 3 is telling a story about strange, dreamlike togetherness. Everybody joins up with you. Everybody's on your side eventually. You win them over. And you go on to the final boss fight with everybody at your back. That is the nature of the story that they were trying to tell, and they built their protagonist as someone who could do that, who could pull people together. And if you look at the beats in Saints Row 3, almost all of them are about connecting to people. Like Shandi, who connected with the guy who dies in the first couple of scenes and spends the rest of the game trying to process that. Or the twin sisters, one of which dies, and then that connection is suddenly cut, and she has to figure out what her life is going to be like. This game is literally all about connecting to people on an emotional level, even though it's about a cartoon gang and a guy wielding a 4-foot-long dildo. The games couldn't be more different in terms of tone, but the reason that they can have such easy-to-parse stories, such stories that make a huge tonal impact and stay with you, is because of the way the main character interacts with all of the other characters in the game. In Saints Row 3, there is a moment where there is a car sing-along between the protagonist and one of the main NPCs. And it's one of those things where you'll remember it for a long, long time, even though it is pointless. It's just some fluff. But it's like, oh, this is like we're hanging out. You can feel it. This is great. Whereas in Nier Automata, you get those moments of intense loneliness because these two approaches suit their stories so well. And I know that some people don't like Saints Row 3 because it's too goofy, but those people are wrong. Goofy is fine. Let's give you another example. How about Life is Strange? In Life is Strange, you play as Max, who is a nerdy photographer girl. And the point of the game is that Max also has a hard time connecting to people. The people she meets, she doesn't brush them off exactly, but her power allows her to exploit them. She can rewind time and say whatever she wants to say. So she never really connects to people. And the story is literally about her connecting to people, her learning to connect. When she teams up with her buddy, and she's trying to save her buddy throughout the entire game, and the whole point of the game is literally that at some point she has to say that she loves her buddy and work with her buddy instead of trying to just work above her and around her. Instead of simply trying to save her life, she has to open up. She has to say, I love you. This is what's going on. It doesn't matter whether you choose to save or doom Chloe in the end. It provides closure to you, but the story by that point is already over because Max has already opened up. And the reason why this game stays in people's minds so much is because the way that Max begins to connect to people is very powerful. It's very memorable. There's a million ways that your protagonist can connect to people. For example, you might have a game where there are no other characters actively walking around in your game. For example, you might have Gone Home, which is a story that takes place in a big house that is completely empty of people. There's no people in it. And you go inside and you can't even see yourself. You're just first-person view. But the people in the house interact with the main character through the things they left behind. And you can see signs of her place in that world and her impact on the people around her, and how she views them becomes clear because those are the things that you see. When you pick up one of your dad's 800 unsold books, yeah, that's because that's what your character noticed. That's what the protagonist noticed. This is something where even if your protagonist never actually interacts with another character, how your protagonist parses them, how your protagonist reacts to their existence, even if they're somewhere else, still determines how the story unfolds and what the player sees. This is something that I think a lot of people don't really understand when they're making their protagonists. And like, oh, I'm going to make, cool dude, make soldier buddy, or I'm going to make lonely girl struggling against the world. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Does it fit how your story needs to unfold? You want your characters to interact in a way that lets you write the story you want to write. And the most interactive character you're going to have is the protagonist, just because they're in the center. This isn't about their personality. This isn't about how they look or how they act or what their powers are or any of that. It's just about their core level of how do they interact with people? Do they push them away? Do they exploit them? Do they draw them in? What do they do that makes this story unfold in the way you want it to unfold? And you don't have to be clever about it. All you have to do is be right. And at least that's what I'm saying today. Let me know what you think. Bye.